Alrighty, good morning, everyone. My name is Justin Fitzpatrick, and I serve as the Membership and Communications Coordinator for United Partners for Human Services, and we bring to you another fantastic workshop, our first starting out the year of 2023. So happy New Year to everyone, first off. But this amazing workshop titled Uncover, Manage, and Mastering Human Biases is going to be brought to us by the fantastic Yolanda Porchot. This workshop will help us learn how increased emotional intelligence can help minimize the negative effects of our internal biases, and we'll explore the role of our own personal social conditioning and how it plays in the internalization of human bias. So without further ado, I don't want to take any more time up from our presenter and feature the wonderful and fantastic, yet again, Yolanda Porchot.
Good morning, everybody. This is really such a time. I am Yolanda Porchot. This is Uncover, Manage, Master Human Biases. And I just want to go ahead and let's just jump in. I want to talk to you in your welcome. I just want to ask us to, as much as we can, to just bring our authenticity, our real concerns, our real open hearts to this process. What I have done, and I have helped because, people care about me and they care about this process. So I like to say we, but what I have discovered as I've talked to a lot of you executive directors is that we might want to contemplate trust. And some of it, before we get too far, you do need pen and paper. I know it's like, it's cool. Yeah, I always need pen and paper if you're hanging out with me. So if you have it and you can grab a pen and some clean paper, that'd be great. And so some of it may be about trusting me, like who is she to be talking about diversity and inclusion and blah, blah, blah. And so, a lot of my life, which is so fascinating when I think about training for the city of Tallahassee, because most of my life I've taught at colleges and I taught, race and minority relations, the sociology of work, right? But the thing that I think that I have not said enough that I think is so important in our process is I have been taught and trained to meditate for over 30 years. It started right here, where it was in Thomasville, but really it got serious right here in Tallahassee, Florida, when I joined Shambhala. And so I think it's just so important that we try to, increase our trust and compassion for each other. But what I really want to say about trust this morning is a lot of us we've not developed a trust in ourselves so that we can sit with our own discomfort. And that is why this training has been updated to focus almost exclusively on self-awareness. Who am I when it comes to human differences? Who am I? And so we have over the holidays really looked at what we can offer in this very critical time in history. And I think as individuals, we should be asking ourselves, who am I going to be under all of this political and social stress? So I just want to highlight a little bit of what Yolanda Speaks is offering in these critical times. First of all, this emotional intelligence at work, if you were really interested as an executive director or somebody in leadership in going deep into this process, I think we should start with emotional intelligence at work. I'm going to talk about the workbook later, but it's like many of us have not matured emotionally. It's not our fault. But in order to grow emotionally, we're going to have to put some attention on it. And then there's this training. Again, we're going to be pulling out. And I have to tell you, it was so good for me. My good friend, Catherine Register, said to me, Yolanda, you're going to have to go out and talk to executive directors. And I'm telling you, it bore great fruit because this training, even though we're going to pull out a lot of what we're talking about systems, we're not giving it up. We're just going to start with seeing if we can stand ourselves as we explore ourselves and human differences. And then there's a story sharing. I'll talk to you about this more, but I want to make sure I say something about white supremacy at work, question mark. because you may decide that, yes, your team is willing to go there. We know that there's social consequences. We don't want to get together and try to pretend that things aren't what they aren't, right? But I had to at least let you know that Yolanda Speaks is willing to go down this challenging road of looking at what Dr. Okon has deemed white supremacy at work, so that we can begin to look at, don't get scared, just like, am I experiencing that? Is that happening in my workforce? If so, I'd like to fix it. And so I will always offer that. And of course, you have to decide if that's something you want to do. But I want to say a little bit about the workbook. That is actually a picture of the workbook juiced up a little bit. I really recommend this workbook. And I've been training in this town for 20 years. And one of the things that has kind of hurt my heart a little bit, and there is some racial energy around this, is a lot of frontline workers are dealing with very difficult customers, and they are not being trained on how to deal with it emotionally. There's some high stress interaction that our frontline staff have to deal with that they pay the consequences for, but we haven't invested the energy in growing them up emotionally. How do you deal with conflict? And so I have to, at this stage in my development, share with you what we have to offer. And now let's look at this training. So I want you to know that I have pulled from this training. We don't really have time. I've had to cut it in half, but still I'm hoping that you will leave with real value. So we're going to cut it in half and see how much we can get done. What is the relationship between emotional intelligence and diversity and inclusion? Why do you need to be mature to deal with human differences? What is conditioning? And so, one of the things that has happened for me as a student of meditation, probably now at this point, I've had 20 weekends of just silence and contemplation, right? And something really comes out of that, because you begin to see that your mind is conditioned. We want to really begin to talk about how is a mind conditioned, and how is a mind conditioned in biases? What does that mean? So another word for conditioning could be learning, right? Internalization. So definitely want to make sure that we understand that. And professionalism. And some people are like, well, me liking groups of people have nothing to do with my professionalism. And I say to you, that's fine. Let's just see if we're willing and able to look a little bit deeper at it. So look at this. I just want to say, for those of you who have followed me and been to my training over the years, if there was an overarching process that I believed in, it would be this process called growing in emotional intelligence. And I just want to highlight that as we look at this pyramid, a couple of things I want to say about it. The first one is self-awareness is foundational. So a lot of times people will say, I don't care if you're Black or gay or white or whatever. I like everybody and I don't even want to deal with that, right? That could be true. Or it could be that you've not done the analysis to get clear about who you are and where you are around human differences. And I think that even if we feel like we're good, now is a time for us to really start practicing self-awareness. I hate the word technique, but I'm going to say technique. So we begin with, who am I? And I'm going to do an exercise with you that increases self-aware, a lot of exercises, but just one thing that I'm going to do today that's really fun is called coming to my senses. We'll do that, right? A lot of us don't even know that the only way we experience the world is through our senses. And so you have to have self-awareness in order to have self-management. That's the other thing about this pyramid, this process called emotional intelligence. These competencies build on one another. Watch your mind. So many minds, the way we're conditioned, especially as Americans, it's not bad. But a mind, when I want to go straight to social intelligence, I'm a leader, right? So many people want to lead that are emotionally immature. Some of your desire to lead is to avoid the insecurity of following and following well. And so I encourage you, please, to take a step back and go through this process step by step, self-awareness, self-management, self-motivation. What gets you up in the morning? And so people say, Yolanda, when do you get a chance to meditate? I meditate first thing in the morning. Sometimes you may have to get up earlier just so you can meditate, if it is of value to you, right? And then empathy is really our ability, after spending lots of time coming to know ourselves, it really is an outcropping of our connection with ourselves. We begin to connect genuinely with other people. That's what empathy is. Not, oh, I feel so sorry for gay people right now. No, it's that you understand what it's like to be persecuted, to not be liked, to be odd. It's very different than sympathy. It's connecting at the heart. And then social intelligence, which includes leadership. When I worked at the City of Tyler, I still do some training for them. But one of the things that I heard that is so fascinating to me from frontline staff, once again, was that they felt like leadership, we're not going to argue about this. I just want you to take it in, take this for a walk. Leadership is narcissistic. Not once, not twice, not 3 times. Narcissistic. Do y'all know what that means? I'm not even going to tell you. That's your homework. Look it up and then take that for a walk. Is that the kind of leader I want to be? And so let's do some coming to my senses. This is so fascinating and such a powerful tool. Usually when I do trainings, I do a guided meditation, but I just want you to see if any calm comes to you through this process, right? So if you can sit upright, I'm going to put all these up and I'm going to still kind of guide you through this, right? So if you can and you feel safe enough, close your eyes and just see what it means to tune inward. Just see if you can go in. Just go in. Now, what do you see? Your eyes are closed. Whether your eyes are closed or open, what do you see? What do you smell? Sometimes you really have to tune in, if nothing is cooking, to what you smell. What do you hear? What do you feel? Your chair, the ground. What do you feel on the inside? See if you can locate any sensations inside the body. What do you taste? And so when you're at work, whether you're a leader or frontline staff, you should be a leader even if you are a frontline staff. All of us have to lead ourselves. If you steal away and you tune into your senses, that's called grounding and being present. A lot of what worries you is your thinking. Come to the body. Come to your senses. Okay. And so, I just want to say this. I love the saying, still water runs deep. If you sit with yourself every day, you set a timer for 5 minutes and once you set that timer, leave that phone alone. You just sit and watch whatever comes up. That in itself will grow you. So y'all know how much I love first thought. So let's look at first thought. We're not discussing anything. I'm going to give you a point where I'm going to say, hey, if you really have a burning desire, give it to me. But let's look at first thought. And all I want you to do is write down the first thing that comes to you. The other thing I want you to be mindful of, too, is the things you won't write. Right? Something might come up for you and you might say, ain't nowhere in the world I'm gonna write that. But you really want to pay attention to the things that you wouldn't even write, even though you're in secret. So you're tuning inward. Number 1, there are 10, so you don't have to be anxious, it's coming. There are 10. Number 1, liberals. liberals. Right, the first thing that comes to your mind. And if your mind goes blank, consider it a gift. Number 2, conservatives. Number 3, Black boys. Black boys. Number 4, white women. White women. Number 5, gay men. Gay men. Number 6, Muslims. Number 7, Christians. Number 8, Black women. Black women. Number 9, white men. And finally, 10, poor people. Poor people. People living in poverty. So I want to just read them again, and I just want you to be mindful, look at your answers, see if something else comes up for you, see what comes up for you the second time around. For those of you who've done this before, if you have a sheet of paper, see if you can put it out on the margins, the new stuff that comes up for you. And you can study that to see if it was corrective or more of the truth. You know, there's no way I can know that about you, only you. So number 1 was liberals. 2 was conservatives. 3, Black boys. 4, white women. 5, gay men. 6, Muslims. 7, Christians. 8, Black women. 9, white men. And 10, poor people. People living in poverty. All right. So now, this is just information. You're just sitting with yourself. Years ago, we would just have people like tell their answers and stuff. And some people start getting their feelings hurt. Sometimes people just really don't need to know how you feel, huh? But you do. So the next thing that we're going to do is just explore a couple of questions and just answer these. We're still writing. Just answer these to the best of your ability. Right? Also, be aware if you're like, I'm not answering nothing. I'm so sick of it. Just be aware of your own attitude. It is so funny because sometimes you have a bad attitude and you're like, it's because of Yolanda. I hate dreadlocks. It's not. Look deeper. You don't know me. Look deeper than that. All right, here we go. Describe the mission of your organization. You don't have to have the right words, just generally speaking. What is your organization all about? Be interesting if you have an actual mission statement to know if your staff knows about what that mission is and how that governs each of our workday. Number 2, what's your job title? And then list your top 2 most important duties under this job title. I know some of you are like, where are you going with this? That's the other thing. You ain't got to know what the end gonna be. Go with the flow. That's some anxiety. Where is this at? Even when you're falling in love, where's this love going, honey? Take love one day at a time. Joy and pain, we'll get through it. So your job title, what's your job title? In your mind, what are the two most important things that you do? There's probably 20, but just in your mind, the top two. All right, let's go on. All right. Do you serve a diverse population of humans? If so, describe the diversity of staff and clients you serve. Take a minute now and think about your staff. Ideally, we would want the courage to look at this from top to bottom, right? What does diversity look like in your organization with staff? And then what does diversity look like from the people who come in for your services? See if you can play with that just a little bit. See what comes up for you. Please be aware if in asking that question, you have sensation in your body. Be aware of that. See if you can back up and just be with that sensation. That is the most powerful thing that you can get, is to sit and own your own feelings. It is highly possible that that same feeling is not going on in my body, which means that we have to own our feelings. So when any of these questions come up, if it registers in your body, the body keeps the score. You need to spend time with that. What top two things have most prepared you to work with people from backgrounds unlike your own? So in the longer training, we have 8 questions. Today, we're going to do 4. But I think these are good ones. What top 2 things have most prepared you to work with people from backgrounds unlike your own? So if you are taking this training and people on your staff are taking this training, this would be so interesting to start talking about together, right? You have to be very courageous and bold. That's why I spend a lot of my personal time just kind of like telling people you're worth something. I don't care how you look or what you do. You need courage to do this work. All right, those 2 were some doozies. There's a lot to learn from that. Let's move on. Stephen Covey. We see the world not as it is, but as we are. That's usually the one you get from him. We see the world not as it is, but as we are, or as we are conditioned to see it, which is so important. If you do nothing else, you might contemplate Yolanda. So set your timer for 5 minutes. And while you're still feeling relaxed and centered, ask yourself, how have I been conditioned around human differences? What have I been taught? In many different ways today, in the short time that we have, we're going to be looking at our conditioning. Who told us that? How did they tell us? How was it reinforced? Conditioning is about the state of mind, of the mind. So that's a good one. I really like the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, but some people are like, if you knew Stephen Covey, you might not like him. I don't really need to know all that. Good grief, people. We got to loosen up a little bit. So a bias, what is a bias? Strong feelings about a person or a group based on prejudice or overgeneralization. Now, if you see the word bias and that gives you a feeling, see if you can tune into this. You need to write about that. Just seeing the word bias, privilege, Black, race, homosexual, you're like, your whole body just starts singing. You should be concerned about that. Like, turn that inward and go, Yolanda, darling, what's going on, sugar? Where is the love? Where did it go? If it wasn't ever there, why not? And so we have explicit bias, which we're aware of. Lately, people have said because we have implicit bias, subconscious, that it has kind of been like a way for people to go, a lot of your biases are explicit too. And so let's see if we can deal with what you got first. I think some of the subconscious biases will come up even in this process. If you're sincere, if you really want to know, many of us really don't want to know. We want to know about people who are out to get us. We don't want to know about who we are to get, who we feel. I love that it has come up in our social conversation about value, people feeling valued or not valued. And I will hope that as leaders, we are just as curious about what we hold in low regard as we are about being held in low regard. And so today we're really talking about maturity. And we don't want to feel guilty or bad because we're emotionally immature. We want to grow in maturity. We don't have time for that. It's time to grow up. And so from a sociological perspective, that's my background. I taught sociology for 20 years. Conditioning, socialization, training, whatever. You have rewards, punishments, and ideas. Mama say, you know, Yolanda, we only play with Black children. Sometimes all you got to do is tell it. But then if you start playing with white children, you get a scolding. You learn it from, that's conditioning you. Sometimes you can condition people indirectly by just never being around people that are different. But what's important now is for us to begin to look at what is the condition of my mind regarding differences. What is the condition of my mind? Not what I tell people. I don't know if many of you have been watching this wonderful series, Abbott Elementary. The beautiful woman who's the star of it with the dimples. Oh my God, she's so great. She's like the, like corny short teacher. I think she got a lot of work. Well, she's on this video and she's saying her advice, she's with Oprah Winfrey. And she's like, what I think that we need to be aware of is how we feel about ourselves when we're all alone. And I think that's so powerful. So much, let's go back to conditioning. So much of our positive regard for ourselves is conditional, which is many, many times the reason why we feel like other people's worth is conditional too. We don't have a real place in our own hearts for loving ourselves unconditionally. And that's heartbreaking. That's absolutely heartbreaking. You should at this moment be madly in love with your pure existence. That's Auntie Yogi speaking. Do with it what you will. So if you got another piece of paper, we're going to draw a picture, but we're only going to look at 3 dimensions of diversity today, right? So get your stick person, and we're going to look at 3 dimensions of diversity. Put your name at the top. Let's see what we can find out about these 3 dimensions of diversity. Oh, we're doing so great on time. Good. So you got stick person. All they need now is a head and arms. Like, all right, y'all hard group. Anyway, so draw it. Right, the dimension of diversity. So I want to go all the way down because we're going to look today at race, gender, and religion. So on your stick person, I want you to write race, and I want you to look, and I want you to write what your race is. I want you to write gender. We're going to do it all at once now. I want you to write what your gender identity is. And I want you to write religion and write what your religion is. This is just part of you. In the long training, we look at 7, though I am honestly considering adding age. What's that lady's name? Flagler. Josie kind of got that on my mind. Like, wait, you got to do better. And that's the thing. Just because you got a little gray hair don't mean you can't keep learning. I learned a lot just talking to you guys. Okay, so we may have that. So let's look at these. Now, this is one of the biggest differences in the 2023 version of Uncover Manage Master than the last one. Because right here in the middle where we look at personal experience, we used to make a systemic statement, which I still think is really important. But what I learned through my conversations with many of you is that really was, I ain't gonna call no names so I can feel safe to say that a lot of what was hurting people's feelings. I hear people say, well, that's your problem. That's your I know, but I got a job to do too. And so I think that's what a trust is. Let's see if we can look deeper. And the more you can trust you with you, maybe you can begin to trust yourself in the world with all people. So let's look at race. Now, even when we look at a definition, so that, again, if you see race in your whole body is a fire, right? There's a good reason, we're looking at Black history, the school to prison, there's a lot of things that just seeing race might stir up something for you. If that is true for you, own that. Like, man, I saw race and my blood pressure just went up. You need to know that, right? So race refers to shared physical characteristics like skin color, eye shape, body build, hair texture. It would seem like it's so much more than that, but we're gonna let it go with that. From a sociological perspective, race is about shared physical characteristics. But now I want us to do something a little bit different. I want us to look at our personal experiences. Bring to mind, leaders, your close relationships with people who do not share your race. Now, before you get started, what I want you to do is look at that from birth to high school. If you take a second and you look at your life, I know it's not easy, but just see what comes up for you when you throw this to the mind, right? Up into high school, just list see if you can become aware of the relationship that you had with people that didn't share your race. Did you go to church with people that didn't share your race? Did you have people over for dinner that didn't share your race? Did you date people that didn't share your race? Were you close? Did you go to other people's house at their parents? From birth to high school. See what comes up for you. Now, it is absolutely okay if you don't write this and you just think about it, but I would like for you to challenge you to write it too, because that concretizes a little bit more. A lot of times we just don't want to see ourselves. We just want to go, ooh, I can't stand that. I can't stand that. I can't stand that. For people who have been trained the way I've been trained, a lot of what you see is a projection. You cannot anger things away. It solidifies it. Now let's look at your early adulthood to today. If you're not at work, who do you have close relationships with that do not share your race? This is not, of course, I could say this is not to make you feel guilty. If you feel guilty, if you feel ashamed, if you feel something in your body, that's good. You need to tune into that. You stop everything and just kind of tune into that. It is so important when we start having these difficult feelings that we turn inward and be with them. I just did a video yesterday about this because I've been, part of the reason why I went into meditation was because I am a trauma survivor. And along with doing EMDR for my PTSD and all this stuff, people were like, you need to take up yoga and meditation. I didn't go there like some holy thing. I started silence to save my life. But in the process, I've learned something, that there's a part of me that is unconditionally wonderful. Yeah, through it all. So if you have biases, you're still wonderful. You're still beautiful, and you matter, because you're responsible for healing your biases and nobody else. So let's take that. Take all we've learned about ourselves so far, and let's look at work. How does a person, given all that you feel like you know, how does a person's race impact the way you interact with that person as a leader, employee, co-worker, or customer? Just think about that. Think about times you've been at work and a person just had an identity and you just was like, I ain't making it up. I had a person from the city of Tallahassee say, I will ride in a truck with a transgender person, but I ain't gonna talk to him. If you feel that way, don't feel bad about that. Figure out where that come from. What kind of conditioning does that come from? And some of you may like, I ain't gonna study that. I don't want to look at that. I'm good with my biases. Okay, then, but please be good when biases come for you. You see what I'm saying? We wrestle not against flesh and blood. All right. Do you have racial biases and prejudice? Period, as the young people say. I love that though. Have y'all heard that yet? Period. Maybe we'll be able to do some kind of declarative with question mark. Question mark. Anyway, do you think race matters at work? Why or why not? What is it? No wrong answers. Learn to be with yourself, even if you are a rascal. Gender. This is a very hard one. It's a sociological definition too. Gender refers to the expectations we have of humans based on our perception of what that person's sex. That's intense, huh? If you want to play with that definition a little bit, take a picture of it and take it for a walk. So cisgender is the way we have operationally defined that, is people who are on the traditional side of gender and who exhibit traditional gender roles. I remember doing a training for the city of Thomasville, and this guy was like, don't call me no cis. He was so frustrated with all this new stuff. Don't call me cis. I'm not cis. I'm like, all right. If people say they don't want to be called cis, don't call them cis. We didn't even have that term until the 90s. I know y'all gonna Google it, so I Googled it ahead of time before I told you. I know for myself, being a queer Black woman, people probably Google everything I say. I need a lot of backup. So transgender, I mean, there's so many definitions for that, but let's see if we can roll with this process of coming to match what is being signaled on the inside in terms of gender roles and expectations with the outside, right? And what I love about, well, I'm going to talk about transgender, but so a lot of people are saying, I don't really know what to call it. And I get it. I'm not going to even tease with you, but if somebody says they're a transgender woman, then they're probably presenting right now as a woman. Where you end up is where that person is manifesting now. A lot of times when people say, oh, it's just so confusing, when you hear yourself say that, see if you can back up on yourself and go, okay, Yolanda, is it confusion or are you prejudiced? It's just you and you. You just being conditioned that anybody that's transgender lacks worth. See if you can own that. And then queer. I'm somebody that likes queer. I just feel like, why you need to know so much about me anyway? Sometimes I'm in circles with mostly like LGBTQ people, and they love to go around the circle and say, what's your gender? And I'd be like, I don't know, good God, why you need to know? That probably will offend some people, but it's a thing like that. Like sometimes these, especially when it comes to gender, these boxes limit even more. Right? So now you got 5 boxes. Maybe you just want to be unboxed. That's what I think about when I think gender queer. Like this place where, yeah, I guess I have gender, but why does it really matter? Maybe I'm all genders or no gender. I can't see a lot of your faces, but I know that kind of stuff. Ooh, ooh, ooh. You feel it in your stomach. Why does that hurt? Why does that hurt? And so imagine now a Black person, a white person seeing Black success and feeling like their stomach is sick. Why does it hurt them to see Black success? It's that same feeling that you might be having with other people's success. Turn it inward. Bring to mind your close relationships with people who do not share your ideas around gender roles. And there are a lot of ideas around gender roles. It's so interesting. It's so interesting. All right. Okay. So when you look at your own life, when you were in high school, from birth to high school, how many people did you know that were not expressing traditional gender roles that you were close to? What about today? Who are you close to today? Your early adulthood. And so a lot of this is just to really kind of get you to really give yourself a break too. How can you love folks you don't even know? You can try, but then you have to deal with all this conditioning. It's a sad thing when we realize we've been conditioned to hate and not care for other human beings. It's really heartbreaking, actually. So let's look at gender at work. Now, I think a lot of us are already, when we talk about just men and women, cisgender, we got a lot to get straight just with cisgender and justice. Just a couple of years. I mean, we're dealing with so much right now, right? It's like the Me Too movement. And people minimize that because women were just talking about their sexual violation. But if you're in a work atmosphere and you feel sexually harassed, that affects your creativity and productivity. If you're passed up for raises, that affects your creativity and productivity too, because you're going to spend a lot of time going, did they do that because of my gender? And you just on the clock being mad, making money. How does a person's gender impact the way you interact with that person as a leader, a co-worker, or a customer? Have you already decided if somebody manifests as transgender, you're not going to serve them? You're not going to work alongside them? But by God, you really do want people to work with Black folks. I want us to grow up in some of this so that we can participate in having an America that all of our children can feel at peace in. Do you have gender biases? Do you think gender matters at work? Why or why not? I think we got the point here. So let's look at religion. Religion is so good. Ooh, I don't know. I feel like sometimes I get in more trouble with the religious thing than I do with. If you're a trainer and you don't get in trouble, you ain't doing it right. So many of us deny our authenticity for money and say we trust God. I'm gonna hold my hands up because I know somebody's throwing something at me, but I'm still gonna say it. Where is your trust, right? You gotta be bold soldiers. A religion is a person's belief in superhuman power or God. So we got this list of religions: atheist, agnostic, and religion is a really powerful thing right now. Very, very powerful. And so we have to really ask ourselves, just from looking at this, can I exist comfortably with people who don't share my religion? Bring to mind your close relationships with people who do not share your religion. From birth to high school, did you have any friends that didn't share your religious beliefs? Early adulthood to today. Do you right now have close, intimate relationships with people who are anything unlike you? Right? Is there any human diversity in your existence? We're not talking about being bad. We're talking about being aware and prepared. So, given all that you know about you, how does a person's religion impact the way you interact with that person as a leader, employee, co-worker, or customer? Like, really, this is so serious. When you go for a walk and you're thinking about religion, I've been thinking about this so much for people who are like dedicated religion, regardless of your religion. If there's spirituality in your religion, and you sit with yourself, you set that timer for 5 minutes. Once you get to a place of calm, I want you to ask yourself, am I better than other people under God as I understand God? It's a very, very interesting thing to ask. Is God prejudiced too? Does God love Black people more than white, or vice versa, gay people? These are really interesting things to contemplate, and very hard. Very hard. Do you think religion matters at work? A lot of people say, you need to keep religion out of work. If religion has, it would be great. Religion has seeped into everything now. And I mean, I like to accept things as they are. I think there's something that we can begin to learn as we look at our own behavior around differences. It's something that we can learn. And so, what time is it? Good on time. So that's just kind of like an introduction. One of the things that came up for me as I was talking to a lot of you about trainings was about what do we do? And I just want to say something about self-awareness. Be mindful of yourself. Like, what do I do now? I got all this self-awareness. Be very careful about a mind that tells you you have all this self-awareness. Some of us, we just cannot be at the learning stages or nothing. We got to be the top of everything. It's a way of saying that we lack humility. I would just like to encourage you to pretend that you don't know and go into silence as a practice. So increase your self-awareness by practicing silence. You can very easily get a list of dimensions of diversity. You could take a whole week on just race and check yourself out. But do it in silence. There is something about the human that is unmeasurable, but very, very powerful. And I could talk to you about it, or I could tell you how to discover it. Be mindful of your responses at work. You say, what do I want to do there? Be mindful of your responses, because you might be telling yourself, child, I'm good with everybody, but you're not really checking out the real truth. Like people say, this person lies so much, they don't even know their own truth. If you're that person, it's okay, back up and start checking yourself out. If a woman says something, do you lean back like, oh Lord? As soon as a man says something, you lean back up. You're a good person, beware of that. See if you want to keep that. See what you can learn. See what you're gonna. I think a lot of us, we want to be on the right side of this thing. We don't want to be prejudiced or looking down on people. But it takes more than a want. That's a typo. To decrease biases, I'm sorry, continue honest inventory. Some people say you should take a daily inventory. So at the end of the day, you know, who did I harm? Who harmed me? One of the things that I notice in my daily inventory is a lot of times I'm upset, it's because of my thinking. Like, you ever just get attacked by your thoughts and you think it was the person you were thinking about, but the person hadn't done anything to you. The whole thing is just a mind fight. She think I'm da 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 da. I ain't been a da 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 da. If you open your eyes, what's in front of you is your couch. I know that's deep, but you got to be exposed to deep stuff, right? We don't want to walk around here with the maturity of a ditch versus an ocean. Let's at least say we can get to the lake. So self-awareness is the foundation. Don't rush that. But don't become obsessed with yourself either. You know what I mean? You know, like, you don't want to become a total navel gazer. You want to look at who am I in relation to other people, including me, right? You probably have gotten so much like, oh my God, this dark skin, she thinks she's smart, these dreadlocks. If I have helped you see what you don't like, go in on that. Because people who look and act like me ain't going nowhere. We just got started. Oh, I want to give y'all a chance to say something before we do this. So, if anybody want to make a comment out loud? That was a lot. What? No comments? Okay, then. I ain't gonna push y'all. I'm gonna show you the second page of that workbook. I want y'all to see what's gonna happen in that workbook. A word from Yogi. I'm Auntie Yogi. Pretest. Da da da. Be quiet. A work inventory. One of the things I love about this workbook is if you get your staff into it, they can begin to share language. The most powerful thing, well, there are two things. I love that people will be given meditation instructions, but this Auntie Yogi social conflict inventory is a very, very powerful thing for staff to really begin to look at what are those things that upset them. So I definitely want to encourage you to look at your staff and look at who could benefit, and you too. You know, this is designed for frontline staff, but many of us are interacting with people that are emotionally challenging. And all throughout the book, it's a diverse workbook, starting with this wonderful quote by Martin Luther King, which I love. So I'm going to read it here. If a man, and woman, trans person, if a human is called to be a street sweeper, y'all heard this, he should sweep streets even as Michelangelo painted, or Beethoven composed music, or Shakespeare wrote poetry. He should sweep streets so well that all the hosts of heaven and earth will pause to say, here lived a great street sweeper who did his job well. And that really is at the core of what we're trying to do. We want to do a good job. Yes, we want to, take care of ourselves and take care of our families, but we want to honestly serve those who are most vulnerable, who are under our care. And I'm gonna tell you something, they're looking at the diversity in your organization, and they're looking at the diversity of your leadership. This is me, I'm a coach. Workbooks, self-awareness at work, diversity and inclusion at work, stress management at work. Hurt, that's right. We're bringing Hurt back. Hurt and Illume are trainings that I do that are about the history of African-American women. Hurt is so interactive, but it is. If your feelings get hurt easy, you're right. We got to start telling people, like, if on a scale of 1 to 10, if your feelings can get hurt, this is like a 9. So don't touch it if you ain't ready. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm with you now. Whoa, 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 whoa. Anybody, is it, y'all, it is not a good sign that y'all won't talk to me. Y'all ain't gonna treat me like this, are you? Come on. Anybody, anything. Well, then, I thank you so much for your time. I don't know why I'm showing up so big. I must have done this wrong because I don't want to look at myself like this. Let's see what my view could be. Okay. That's where I want to be. All right. I am done. Thank y'all so much for your attention. I don't know if Amber or LaShawn want to offer something at this point, but.
I know Justin came off mute. I will just say it's always a pleasure to be in your presence. I know that these sorts of things behind a camera can be difficult. So we want you to recognize that we honor the safe space and being willing to commit to have conversations and be introspective in this type of regard. It's really aligned with the work we're doing at UPHS, not only with our leadership within our membership organizations, but really how our biases permeate throughout the policies, procedures, delivery of service for those that we serve. and those that may not look like us to ensure that that experience is a meaningful one. So Yolanda, thank you so much for continuing to push us and stretch us and have us really just think and be contemplative. And looking forward to having the workbook in my hands actually. And if anybody's interested in what that looks like, please, connect with anyone on our team or Yolanda directly.
Can I make a plug right quick? We are trying to take the United Partners of Human Services has a diversity, equity, and inclusion committee, and I'm the outreach person. Please holla if you want to be a part of that, because we want to do good things. We want to do something different. So if you're interested in that, please check that out.
I want to mirror Amber too. I come to all of your sessions and I learn all the time. And I think today why you didn't get any responses because you got people thinking. and including myself. So I just want to say thank you again, Yolanda.
Thank you. Thanks for saying that. All right. Oh, last thing, I'm going to be facilitating the listening circles tonight. We're really trying to get people who are not, service people, but I know some service people are being there. I just want to say publicly, I'm so grateful to be listening to members of our community about what they need. I just enjoy, as queer as I am, I enjoy my life, y'all. I appreciate it. Well, I'm gonna go. It's good to see you. I gotta go.
Thank you again, everyone.